Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In the last session, we discussed about what are different kind of clustering techniques. Today, we want to discuss about the difference between clustering and classification. You must heard about the clustering and the classification techniques. So here we will explore more. So what actually is clustering and what is classification? Let's have a look again on it. So clustering basically it's an unsupervised learning technique. First of all, it's an unsupervised learning technique which is handling the unlabeled data. So in this unsupervised learning, we are using the unlabeled data sets and how we are applying, how we are making out the clusters using the unlabeled data set by using some clustering algorithms. Okay, now classification. So classification basically it's a supervised learning technique where we are having predefined label data sets. When we are training a model, there we are having the label data sets. Okay, so here we are having this classification algorithm where we can have some kind of labeled output like yes, no, or some education like higher education, lower education. Like this, we can have some classification outputs. Okay, so basically, we are going to discuss about the difference between clustering and the classification. So let's have a look at that. So both are actually looks like they are similar, but they are not. Classification, the basic difference, it's a part of supervised learning. We are using this classification technique for supervised learning technique. In the supervised learning, we are having labeled data set. So first of all, keep this in your mind that in the supervised learning, we are having labeled data set, but in the clustering, which is being used for unsupervised learning, where we are having unlabeled data set. Okay. Next difference is here we are having labeled dataset. As I just mentioned, the process of classifying the input instances based on their corresponding class labels. Okay, but if we'll talk about the clustering, so grouping the instances based on their similarity without the help of class labels. So what is happening actually in the clustering? In the clustering, when we are having unlabeled dataset, our model will predict the output based on the similarities which is being there in the data set. What kind of data set you are having. So it will make out the clusters based on their characteristics, based on their similarities, maybe size, maybe color, or depends on your data. But it will keep the data points in the different color clusters. So within the cluster, there will be homogeneity. So keep it in your mind like within the cluster, the data points would be more similar to each other. But in between the clusters, they will be totally dissimilar to each other. Okay. Now the third difference is as classification have labels. So there is need of training and testing dataset for verifying the model created. Okay, so now the clustering, so there is no need for training and testing data set in the clustering. Here in the classification, there is actually a need of training and testing because we are having labeled data set. Based on our labeled data set, we are training our model. But in the clustering, we are not doing any training. Okay, the fourth point, classification is more complex as there are many levels in the classification phase. Whereas only grouping is being done in the clustering. Okay, but in the this is very complex, the classification, which is very complex because it has to maintain the labeled data set. Here we are just doing the grouping. Now, what are the algorithms we are using for the classification? So you can see logistic regression, naive Bayes classifier, or SVM. Okay, but in the clustering, we are having like K means clustering algorithm, fuzzy C means clustering algorithm, Gaussian clustering algorithm, hierarchical clustering algorithm, density based algorithm, and so many clustering algorithms are there. Okay, so that's all for today. We discussed about the difference between clustering and classification. We will see you soon in the next session. If you like my video, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you.